Welcome to She Blaze, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson.
And I am Dasheeda Dawson, the WeedHead. Hey.
Hey, WeedHead. On today's episode of She Blaze, a young cannabis trailblazer dies. Cannabis businesses are still struggling during the COVID pandemic, and we're giving you some helpful hints on celebrating 420 at home.
Girl, we're going to have to kick this off with a high of the week because our weeks continue in shelter in place, and it's definitely not as like high outside of the home, I guess. There's a lot going on, right?
Right. Well, you're not really supposed to be out of your home, so it shouldn't be that high out of your house,
That's the
personally. So,
point. I mean, listen, I'm comfortable. It's week 5 for me, going into week 5 of quarantine, and I couldn't be more happy with the way homeschool is going. I just, I enjoy spending time with my family. I'm excited to see my nephews and my son as young men, and I wish they could go outside sometimes, but I'm not sure if I'm like pressed to go outside. But I am excited about the fact that this is spurring change, and I have been in the digital space for 20 years now, and I feel like that means this is even more so my time. Spent so much time transitioning people and companies to remote working and digital learning, and now it's like required. And so that's the high of the week for me, is just how many people have reached out about homeschooling, how many people have reached out about cannabis education, online education, and various platforms. And I'm still learning, of course, as well, because it's constantly changing, but it is fun to embark on new projects. And as a change agent, I'm always excited when there's something new on the horizon.
for sure. Well, that is great foresight. My high of the week is really just what I'm going to be smoking on for Easter in the house with myself. That's going to be really exciting. I am smoking on some lemon pie and banana kush. So now I'm adding some more into my flavors. And, it's going to be fun. I don't typically celebrate Easter, so it's not like a super big deal to me, but I do know a lot of people, especially because I'm from the South, throw down for dinner. So I'm going to see if I can hold my own.
Oh, you gonna cook?
I mean, I cook. I'm in the house, so I am cooking. It's not gonna be
I don't think we
nothing.
have those plans in particular. I feel like we're just trying to get through the days. I'm like, what day is this? Oh yeah, it's Saturday because of She Blaze. Okay.
Right. It is definitely Saturday, and tomorrow I believe is Easter, which is the 12th, right? Yes.
Yes. It's
And
definitely going. I mean, shoot, let's be honest. April has gone by so fast. This is a 420 all month long. So I definitely I know that's part of what I mean by we have to kind of keep it high, keep it light, because there's so many people sad because they're stuck in the house for 420, and they just we imagine such a big month and such an epic time, and it's sort of like we've got to figure out that epic time amongst ourselves.
yes, implementing social distancing,
Yes.
cleanliness.
Yes.
I mean, if anything, this 420 is hopefully rejuvenating people. Go clean out your bong, clean out your bowl.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
you know. But we did start off on the higher week. However, our first hot topic is not high at all.
No, it's not.
Yes, so unfortunately, Charlotte Fiji, who is known as a change agent in her own right, passed away this past week due to complications with epilepsy.
Yeah. It's been hard to hear the news. I tweeted about it. We tweeted about it and talked a little bit about it. I think there's a lot of people who still didn't know who Charlotte Fiji was, and there's some people who's in the cannabis industry didn't know who Charlotte Fiji was. So that was also a little bit interesting to me. But I know this is just a really sad story. She had a very rare disease. Dravet syndrome, which causes epileptic-like seizures. And basically, she was a three or 4-year-old that was having seizures every 30 minutes. And her parents out in Colorado basically started providing her CBD or cannabidiol. And they went from every 30 minutes to she didn't have one all day to then she didn't have one later on in the evening. And then it became obvious that this was what they needed to do to give to their daughter to, really enhance her way of life. She met
Yeah,
Dr. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying she actually was the inspiration behind Charlotte's Web, which, we give them a lot of props on She Blaze for being leaders within the industry. And this is even how they were able to patent a CBD strain.
Absolutely. We've been talking about them. So Charlotte's Web is named after Charlotte Fiji. That's what makes it even more so impactful, because we've been talking about their expansion. Last episode, we talked about their line of credit with a major bank. They're doing things that are first in the industry. They have been for a while, and they truly do represent what you would consider the mom and pop, or the true cannabis community, the patient community that has grown to a sizable company. In fact, they're so sizable that they get harassed by the FDA essentially. And, recently this week as well, Epidiolex, which is the GW Pharma CBD drug, which is actually rival to some of the CBD products of Charlotte's Web, actually just got removed from the schedule, like just that drug alone. I don't know what kind of movements this is, but basically it was funny for me that she would pass the same week that kind of thing went down, because she is in essence responsible for there even being a non-American pharmaceutical company interested in manufacturing a CBD drug or CBD infused drug, and a lot of doctors changing their mind. Dr. Sanjay Gupta did a whole thing on her this week in CNN. It was really sad. His co-anchor started crying on air. It was really touching, and he basically admitted that he used to write about cannabis negatively, and he had done so in Time magazine just a year or two prior to meeting her. And then after meeting her, I think she was about 3 or 4, it became like she grew up with his daughters. It became his thing that really sparked his interest in global awareness of cannabis as medicine. And the Sanjay Gupta that we know now, Dr. Gupta that we like to reference and quote in the industry, he really became—
He wasn't always that guy.
Exactly. A lot of people weren't always that guy, so it's no shame in that. And he's willing to at least admit it. Some people like to act like they've been down for the flower, down for the plant forever. And we know that's not the case.
No, especially not during the war of drugs time. But, there were a lot of different reports now that you're talking about the CNN special, but there were a lot of different reports and some fake news, if I will say myself, that basically said she died from COVID, and she didn't die from COVID. She did die from having a seizure, but she had pneumonia. And so during this type of pandemic, it's very overwhelming the amount of fake news that goes out within this media time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad story. Seizures, basically, when she was having seizures as a young girl, every time it happened, even though it was every 30 minutes, no one was more or less than the other. They were equally as powerful and equally as dangerous. So every time she was having one, it's like her family has to fear that she's going to die. The CBD treatment essentially stopped her seizures from happening and getting that sick. And ultimately with pneumonia, it exacerbated the underlying disease that she had. And she started getting seizures again, and unfortunately passed away. She was only 13 years old. So she had been in this fight for the last decade with her family. And that essentially is the growth span of Charlotte's Web. So when we say they're OG, they really are. They're pre all of this private equity sharks in the tank. And it was interesting because the whole family apparently was ill for the whole month, prior to her passing and getting really sick, but they didn't qualify for coronavirus tests. So we do not have the confirmations in that regard. But she had COVID-19 like symptoms, which, as you already know, they're actually pretty common symptoms, right?
Right. It could have been the flu.
Exactly. And so, nonetheless, we're sad to see her no longer with us. And I think that it was a loss for the cannabis community.
Right. Well, we are going to still, move our community forward and, start, give our condolences to the family.
Absolutely.
And really, we got to continue to give some more condolences as we move on to our second hot topic, because at this point, we are just hearing, like you said, there are a lot of negative things going on in the cannabis industry right now. So far, High Times Holdings did halt the publication, the two publications that they are owning, which is Dope Magazine and Culture Magazine. And so, because it's a magazine and it's, walk up retail, it's not an essential business at all. They just felt like they were putting their readers in harm's way. And so they decided to, furlough distribution for now. And I will say, Cultures Magazine is still taking subscriptions monthly. You did point out to me that there was an online magazine as well. So if you are still subscribed, you should see how you can flip that over.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I didn't mean to laugh at the beginning but you're kind of right. It's like condolences because it's like farewell to our print magazines. This is not just a cannabis industry issue. Me always thinking about sort of the global business landscape. This is an overall media publication issue, right? Your Essence, Ebony's of the world, any other magazines one may get, they're all struggling for the most part on the print side and have never in the last 20 years really caught up to the digital as they should have. Instead, what has happened is new entities have formed online, like the Revolts of the world. Even Vice initially was through internet media, and Blavity. These are starting to be the places that folks are replacing, getting their media content. But I hope that, again, like I said, I'm excited that I'm a digital expert because I really hope that folks use this time at home where it forces themselves to really think differently, because this is not going away. We're showing ourselves exactly what we're capable of doing when we want and have no choice, rather, and we still want to be engaged. And I think that the print magazine world is going to have to figure that out. I don't know that Dope Magazine has an online component. I know there's a website and it does have like a media feel, but whether it has the same special stories, unclear. I have to shout out Culture Magazine because they featured me as a industry maven in September of last year.
Yeah.
And so I was in the print as well as online. So that's why I know what they're working with, but the story was well done. And it was a spread. It was one of my first spreads. I was very excited about that. But yeah, I'm an investor in High Times, so I'm watching them like with a close eye, like what is happening here. But I think
this might be smart because this is a very smart move, because we did report earlier in the year, High Times is actually opening up retail locations, brick and mortar. So for cannabis specifically, they're becoming a dispensary, which is like really a step forward, because they have the ability to control the media and the marketing. They have events, and now with the brick and mortar, it should melt in properly.
Agreed. And then they appointed Stormy Simon as the CEO, and she comes from overstock.com, which again, just understanding
that was digital only.
And distribution. Exactly. So I already know she's working her magic behind closed doors. And, you know, what we're going to see is people are incubating now. And for the next 3 to 6 months, we'll start to see folks come up out of incubation, out of hibernation, and start to be active again. You know, we're doing the same thing. As you would say, we're in the lab. We're just in a digital lab right now, right? And we're, you know, retooling and consistently looking at how do we capitalize on where we currently have share of audience and how can we build. So kudos to High Times for just being smart. And I'm glad I'm an investor. And I think right now, the best bet is for them to continue to build out this digital experience until they're able to start doing more in person again.
Absolutely. And to talk about digital experiences, you know, I think we can move to our third hot topic of today's show. And this is really going to be an experience because for the first time ever in my like celebratory 420s, because I've had a lot of enjoyable 420s, I will be celebrating at the crib. And so we are going to give you guys some tips on how to celebrate 420 in the house properly.
So what you trying to say, Cannabis Socialite? You're like, listen, I ain't never been in the house for nobody's 420.
No, I have not. I've
You're
always,
right,
I don't even go to the, like, it's not like I'm even going to a club for the party. Like, we're going to a kickback and we are having sessions, but well, we call them kickbacks. It was like before sessions, but we are out there, you know, just smoking and enjoying ourselves, really. And that's the day that people that normally don't consume always want to try something that's available.
Yes.
People always get new cannabis accessories. Like 420, I actually hit a gas mask, and I was really young when I did this. And you know, it's like you get, actually don't make that face, girl, because I did not cough. I hit that properly. And actually me and my friend, the girl, only other, like it was only a few girls there, all the girls hit it properly. The guys were the ones smoking and coughing at the end of the day. So trying to do too much, talking about they smoking us under the table. No, you're not. And so there are going to be a lot of virtual sessions, which really should be interesting. You know what I mean?
It should be, and I'm glad that you, of course, are willing to at least keep us lit in the home. Thank you so much, because, you know, I've spent plenty of 420s in my house or with your sister, Imani. Shout out to Imani Dawson, who is about to celebrate her birthday on 420. Yes, the actual 420.
Yes.
And so, of course, we'll probably have a little sister sesh.
Happy birthday.
Yes, to celebrate that. But I'm excited because in addition to our sister sesh, we will be partnering with Cannaclusive and the Student Marijuana Alliance for Research and Transparency, SMART, to put together a webinar, which is going to happen on 4/18. So that's the first thing you need to mark your calendar for. I believe this is a free webinar. It's going to be featuring moi, How to Succeed in the Cannabis Industry 101, which basically means I'm going to be dropping some of the basics, and it's definitely for the newbies, wannabes, who are interested in crossing over their skill set into the cannabis industry. We have a couple of giveaways, my ebook, which is normally $12.99. We have it, I believe it's going to be for $7.99, but we also are giving away 5 for free. It's going to be a good time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is really going to be fun. That's right. Educating and helping people's hobby, and it's an ebook, so you know it is definitely the definition of social distancing and not moving from place to place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're still shipping print books, just so you know, and we're handling it with all proper precautions, but at the end of the day, we have shifted a lot to focus on the ebook, which is why we're offering this $7.99 deal. So definitely want to drop a lot of that information in the links for you guys in the comments, for you to learn more about how to log on to it. But it's a Cannaclusive and SMART partnership. I'm going to be talking with Cassia, who is part of Cannaclusive. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. And you know I'm going to drop jewels, of course.
Right. That's got it. That's the reason why you're on there. Yeah. So Another event going on is 420 Virtual Cannabis Cup. And that is actually on an exclusive app called Cannabis, which is also on the 18th of April. And that is really going to be exciting because I have not seen a cannabis cup virtually. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do it. I haven't used the Cannabis app, so I downloaded it to see what it's like. I'm very curious on how this goes. I will say, I hope they're not doing the Kush Up Challenge on a cannabis cup and that they have a little bit, more strategic cannabis smoking challenges during the cannabis cup as well.
I mean, at least make sure people are smoking the right way. I wrote about that on my little stories about why I wasn't doing the Kush Up Challenge, because people were asking me if I was going to do the Kush Up Challenge. Specifically, am I doing a Kush Up Challenge for 420? And no, I was talking with Dang Duchess, had a little sister check-in with her, and I thought it was just so funny because she did her own different challenge and was cool with push-ups, and it really worked out. There was no real physical activity with the Kush Up Challenge that I saw. It was all about how do you hold your breath and take in as much smoke holding your breath. I didn't get the holding breath, and then I knew for sure the way I smoke, that wasn't going to work for my, that doesn't work for my lifestyle, unfortunately. But I think that it was interesting to watch how many celebrities jumped on that.
Well, I think that, this really hopefully empowers people to find better challenges to do. I love Watch What Happens Live. They basically stole the way She Glazed did their show. And, they have their drinking games. And I think they essentially were trying to do the same thing, but, do it in a challenge form. And I've just been like, so do you want to pass out on camera? Because that's really what could happen if you're holding your breath and you're trying to intake, smoke, or your throat tracheus, like you think you're going to have corona symptoms by the end of it.
Yeah. Also, let's be honest, and we'll talk a little bit about it. We're getting a lot of advisories from doctors and health professionals around smoking and vaping, and I'll definitely want to chat about some ways to get around it. But yeah, that just didn't seem to be in the spirit of cannabis as medicine. Again, I'm not trying to be judgy, but it was interesting. I watched it. I was entertained by it. So if people are intending to do that, job done. But yeah, I hope this cannabis cup is not something that is, really going to demean the plant and actually uplifts it. And there's some education. Usually it's a balance of both. Like we've been to a lot of, cannabis cups and we're like, wait, what are we looking at? And then sometimes we've been really pleasantly surprised and it's been really dope. So it varies, right? And so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Our Can-Inclusive U webinar, I meant to say, is at 8 p.m. Eastern. And so you do have a good day to do other things. And I hope that people do participate in other virtual.
Well, it's also digital. So usually people make it digital so it can have a little bit more life longevity rather than a event that is one and done.
That's the best part about digital. People are not realizing it's it extends your content and ability to really grow your brand. So again, me taking it back to the business, if you're not already thinking about that, this is the time,
Yes.
What else we got going on?
Yeah, so there is this other event called High Stream 420 Festival, and it will be running all day on 420 at highstreamtv.com. They have a lot of partners with this. One of my faves, National Cannabis Festivals, is participating, and I will always say this, no matter what, at this point in the cannabis industry, Cannabis Festival is literally the best festival surrounded by cannabis in the country. Yep. And I've been going for the last 4 years. And so to be able to see their transitioning online is I'm really excited, and I'm definitely registering. So people register.
Yes, please make sure you leave the links for us.
So Chicago NORML 420 Virtual Summit is actually going to happen on 420 as well. You can register at 420virtualsummit.com. Chicago NORML, they've done some major things as far as just being able to legalize in the way that they did, because that wasn't done before, really, on a huge way, and the way that they're extending their deadlines due to this coronavirus. So Chicago Normal's 420 Virtual Summit is probably going to be really helpful information and super, super good.
Yeah, shout out to Edie Moore, who is the Chicago Normal Executive Director. Dante Townsend is part of their PR communications team. And Kiana Hughes is the Director of Education. They have a dream team. John Day Scott is also the FMM president as for Illinois, as well as part of Chicago Normal. Sort of the way it has to be. New York has a lot of overlap in that way as well, where we're holding multiple hats, because that's the best way to kind of get things done. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. They have been doing the Dope Show for years prior, so I think that they really do, Edie and Kiana specifically, and so they already understand how to do sort of the online. I've done multiple digital interviews with them prior to bringing our book tour out to Chicago, so that sounds like one to definitely watch.
Yes. And then there is another event that's going to be really cool. It's called I Heart 420 Living Room Love Fest.
Ooh.
And it actually will be airing on iHeart Radio. And there is a one and only cannabis channel, which is called Time for Hemp. And that's where you'll be able to exclusively listen, which is pretty dope.
Well, that's exciting.
And yes. And if you guys really, really want to learn more and see more, because literally there are things popping up every second of every day, whether pertaining to cannabis events digitally, you can follow the Maze calendar. They're still doing their calendar. They actually have transitioned their events to all the digital events that are going on. So if you want to see, subscribe to that, and you'll definitely get a whole bunch of events.
That's dope. Shout out to the Maze. Hey.
Yeah. Yes. And so, that's a great way to bring people into your house, because it's not going to be a lot of, smoking friend to friend. So that's a way to smoke digitally with your friends. And there's also ways you could do in the home consumption and be comfortable during 420. For me, I really suggest people creating a nice space in their home, a comfortable space to consume, whether, if you smoke outside, try getting like a lawn chair or outside chair to really make it comfortable, get you a little whole side desk or side place to hold your ashtray and your smoking accessories. If you normally maybe smoke in your home or in your bathroom, try doing it outside.
That's cute. I like that idea. Currently will hit smoke off of my pipe, and I will go outside because of where I am. But I do think there's also great opportunities to figure out things to do inside, especially if it ain't warm yet, y'all. And sometimes I go outside like this morning and I look like, wait a minute. But yes, when it's warm, I will pop a squat. When we've been in Phoenix, it'd be 100 degrees outside. I'm outside smoking and working, and that's my favorite place to be. It is my special place. But I also think this is a good time because we are seeing so much around COVID-19 related to the lungs, and just making sure you are protecting yourself all around. It would be irresponsible for us and me to not just say that. We are definitely encouraging people as they can, depending on their market, to consider transitioning away from smoking and vaping as much. I'm all about balance. And so I do think that we know that anything that actually comes in contact with the lungs from outside source can be an irritant. And right now, just with what is happening with COVID-19 and what we know some of the symptoms are, it feels like you want to try to do whatever you can to protect yourself. And that's just one of the ways. So I wanted to make some suggestions of things that I'm thinking about doing and I never thought about before. First of all, I never thought about learning how to home grow. So I would definitely say, if this is the time for education, and you getting tired to trying to figure out how to get to the dispensary, you're trying to connect with your connect, maybe this is the time for you to really understand the science behind growing something in your home, if that's a possibility within your state. And there are many that is the case, especially if you have a medical marijuana card. And I also realize that there are a lot of people who they only can get flour, but you're saying, hey, don't smoke, don't vape, or smoke less and vape less. How do I do that? And some of the ways you can do that is by converting your flour into tinctures and or edibles for yourself only. And I'll say that specifically because, you know, right now, this is not the time to decide that you want to go into the product development business and try to, you know, feed your whole family your stuff. This is a time, though, you can do trial and error for yourself. And I would say it's always to start slow, start low, go slow. But we have some links for the Ardent Decarboxylator, which is a very easy way to decarboxylate or activate your flour without burning it and getting it to be in a state that you can put it in anything from your personal care products for topical pain to your foods or various butters to make edibles or oils to, you know, to make under the tongue tinctures.
Yeah, and you could do it without the ardent as well.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
because, you know, the ardent is not necessarily an essential item depending on how you're ordering. But there are ways to do it at home.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Plus,
And
it's also an expensive item. So no shade at all. It's actually well priced at $200 because it will save you a lot of money. But if that's not, we're all in a crisis. So if that's not where you're at, you can do it at home. You can do it in your oven, but you want to keep it at a low temperature, it's below 240 degrees, depending on what city you're in and whether it's electric or a gas stove. And you want to make sure your nubs are spread out and not, you know, clumped on top of each other in the oven. And you want to watch it. There becomes a point where your nugs start to go from green to brown looking. They're just before they get really, you know, burnt and no longer as viable. And so there's a perfect decarb color, and you can probably Google that as well. But once it's decarb, now it's active and you can use it for a lot of different things to, you know, take in a different way or consume in a different way.
yes, I've also seen people do it on the stovetop, believe it or not, with a mason jar and water.
Mm-hmm.
in a stovetop oven and really just boiling it, and you're still looking for the same thing. You know, you are looking for, it's a sort of like leaf type of brown decarb. I know what you're talking about, and that is a great way, and that is the beginning steps to making any edibles that you want to make, and the difference between just putting raw flour in cookie dough. Because
Yes.
that doesn't work and it will give you the runs.
That isn't the best way. I mean, certainly if it's hemp flower, you can still do that and you will get some benefits from the CBD. CBD does not need to be heated to be active. It's active in its current molecular state, but this is definitely the case for the THC component as well as some other cannabinoids. And so, yeah, once you get it to that point, you're good to go. You may want to start with a test of making, you know, your eighth, but as you called out the other day, you need a little bit more flour, a little bit more volume than an eighth if you're going to do this. So.
You are so right. I forgot I said that. I was like, listen, don't go in there trying to get high on the 3.5 because that's just a tester, you
Yes.
know.
But you do
Even if
need
they
to test.
said it's right, even if they said it's 24% THC, because you already know, even in the unregulated market, they be quoting some ridiculous THC numbers.
That's true. That's true. And then last but not least, if you do not want to test all of that and you don't, you know, this is something where, again, don't want to assume there's abundance because some people would not want to waste their flour like that. Although I've heard if you then try to smoke or vape the decarb flour, you actually get more potency. And I've felt that in my experience. But in case you're not willing to do that, also there's a way that you can vape your flour rather than smoke it. And I would encourage you to eliminate paper and blunts at this time during COVID-19 as you're trying to, I guess, back away from some of the things that are known irritants for the lung if you want to have full protection. But at the end of the day, your best bet is to stay isolated or distance, continue to wash your hands, and be as great on your hygiene as possible.
Yes, and if you're feeling really, really froggy, you can start making your own tinctures at home, which you would have to purchase Everclear sort of alcohol. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be high grain and at least 100 proof, correct?
Yes, usually. I mean, some people are able to do 91 proof isopropyl, but it's suggested that it's 100 proof.
Yes, and you could soak it in there. It's gonna take some days, so if you might want to start this weekend, and by 420, it will be ready.
That's true. Rick Simpson's oil, as it's known, and we'll drop a link on a quick video I like that showed you how to do it. It's like 7 minutes. It doesn't take 7 minutes though. He reports the timing that's several hours. So starting in the morning and by the end of the day, having something that you can do. But I'm inclined to agree with Ice, depending on how safe you want to be. Everything needs to be done with electric, crock pot, wouldn't suggest it on a gas stove, and in a well-ventilated area. And by well-ventilated, you could do it in your back patio, or you can do it near a window with a fan set up. But alcohol is very, very easy to work with and easy to burn off because it has such a low boiling rate, boiling temperature. So the video really outlines the best way to do it. And you don't need like anything again but the flour to start with, and a lot of products that most people will have in their house: jars, filters, or funnels, those type of things, cloths. You know, at the end of the day, it's a pretty easy DIY, which is why so many people have DIY'd that. And it's like 500 a gram.
Right. Oh my goodness, it's really expensive. Tincture is like, people really think it's the holy grail, but I do think secretly the reason why they price tincture so high is because you lose the terpenes. And so, they're adding a lot of terpenes, they're adding a lot of other sweetened flavors within the tincture to make it more tasty. Because it's not.
That's true too. I mean, it depends on the brand. But Rick Simpson's oil is not tasty at all. It is going to taste like it was made with alcohol, and a lot of the really great, potent, effective tinctures that go under your tongue, you need like literally a drop. So the reason it's so expensive is because that little brown substance is like gold. It's gold on terpenes and gold on cannabinoids as well, if done well, because the alcohol doesn't mess with that, and that's what it leaves behind. So
I've had homemade Rick Simpson oil. That shit, that did not taste like it had no terpenes. I'm telling you right now. I DIY, and I be like trying random shit. Listen, all I'm saying is they burnt the terpenes off.
Well, that was because they probably was trying to do it in a couple hours instead of the few days. You want to have the temperature as low as possible because terpenes also have a low boiling temperature as well. By the time you're lighting it and hitting the flour, and this is me totally geeking out, you are burning off most of your terpenes in your flour. So this is a great way to discuss why it's so important to know some of the science behind it, because you might think you're getting the product because it still looks brown, it has the consistency, it has that THC, but you will see a difference in how it works with the patient when it's terpene-less. You're right.
And taste, because that is nasty. Yeah. But these are ways to really enjoy your 420 at home. And with our fourth hot topic, it's a little bit of a downer, so we had to get you guys high.
Yes.
And so yes, because everything else, because that was the peak, y'all. I'm sorry. That was the nicest part of our show, because we got even more disappointing news as we talk about just, the cannabis businesses being in just a financial crisis right now. As we discussed last week, Canada Trust Holdings actually was delisted off the New York and Toronto Stock Exchange. Well, we're also hearing that they both, that Canada Trust filed for bankruptcy protection in Canada. So did James E. Wagner Cultivation Corporation. So those are two big cannabis companies and corporations that are filing for bankruptcy during COVID.
Yeah, I mean, this was to be expected right now. This is just a volatile time. The whole world is up in arms, I mean, in terms of economy, and I am not surprised, but I think that there are going to be some companies that were managing their P&L better, managing their investment portfolio better in terms of brands, and had more backing, so they'll be able to survive. And then there'll be some that pivot faster and they'll be able to survive, you know?
Right. Well, no tea, no shade. Just because you have a large backing by a super big investment group does not mean you are not struggling. As Cronin's Group, which I actually have stock in, they were unable to file their fourth quarter results. And, you know, they are in a lot of debt right now as far as when they finally filed. And we're looking through the papers, you know, it is not that much revenue coming in. And they were actually backed by Big Tobacco. So, you know, that is a little bit more, I think, where they didn't have to file bankruptcy because Big Tobacco is there. But I definitely think they are on a decline as well. And as we saw, you know, you in our stocks last month, when everybody was out buying cannabis, you know, they started raising and we started being like, oh, I'm back to my little $10. And now it's $2. Now that is the stock market.
I'm sorry. You're right, though. That's so true. People got excited for 2 seconds. The cannabis industry has a way of like prematurely like raising the roof or something. I saw people posted about this Epidiolex being taken off the schedule like it was like a real positive thing. And I'm like, bruh, don't y'all know what's actually happening here? And so, yeah, no, there's a part of me that feels like that's why I continue to say, because, you know, this isn't my expertise.
Why did they take it off the FDA list?
Who for? Oh, you mean the Epidiolex? You know, be honest, I'm still digging into it, and I think we're going to have to pull it as a hot topic for next week. But essentially, I feel like, you know, it's an FDA approved drug. They wanted to make it available, more available to folks. And if it's not a schedule, then now GW Pharma, by the way, is not breaking a law either. It's hemp based, so it's like they have it on both the agricultural and wherever they're sourcing, as well as the manufacturing end now. And they should be able to put it in any place. Like, it should be easy to, if they want to decide. It sounds real pharmaceutical right now, Epidiolex, or it sounds like something that if your stomach hurt, then you would take it over the counter. So they might have to work on some of the branding. I wouldn't, you know, but they may decide to have an OTC version of CBD, and it would be the first in the market that's able to say it's FDA approved, and you know for sure that if you have it, you're not going to have police officers decide that they really hit a big score because you have something that has a marijuana leaf on it, or presumed marijuana leaf, hemp leaf, whatever it is. It just is a little bit more protection for the consumers, presumably, but not from the price point. And that's what my biggest concern is. It's like, if we want to pay a lot of money, because we're already paying some pretty penny for some of this cannabis infused products, if we want to pay a lot of money, we can let the pharmaceutical companies take it. You know, I think that's where I struggle, and I hope that Charlotte's Web continues to grow so that we can combat this. I'm happy to see that Cronos is not filing bankruptcy, but I'm also, it freaks me out a little bit. It is Altria Group that backs it. Their tobacco, they haven't necessarily been known to care so much about the health and well-being of their consumers, and now they more recently do. Right.
I'm a vapor, so you know I have a strong I vape, and I do smoke blunts. So, you know, it is a love-hate relationship truly with Big Tobacco, because Big Tobacco actually owns every single blunt you're smoking, except maybe a Fontoul leaf that you bought at the corner store if you live in Brooklyn. Because
you are funny, you're right, and it's good to remind people. But this is also why I'm glad I've kind of broken free of any of those chains. I never really liked blunts to begin with. I was always a paper girl anyway. But the fact that I'm no paper, my regimen has been that for years now at this point, especially since becoming more educated in the industry. And it is. I understand why it's a love hate, because there's an experience with it. It's why people like smoking cigars, and
I love cigars.
so to me, it's a culture, and I don't think it needs to be stomped out because it isn't the healthiest thing for you, because we have so many things in our greater mainstream culture that is not healthy for you at all. Some would say love and hip hop is not healthy for you culturally, right?
I'd rather say sugar is not healthy for you, or even Splenda or Equal. So I was thinking more like food. I was not thinking about reality.
Well, I mean, it was a joke.
I was just, I know, but I said I would have to check them real quick.
I love my reality shows and I watch them with all types of guilty pleasure. But my point is that we got so many things in mainstream that we accept, and we accept even though we know that they're bad. I mean, cigarettes, we know, no. Like, not like, oh, we might know, we might kind of know, we know are bad. And tobacco smoked, we know is bad. And the way it's packaged, we know is bad. So we do need to just kind of get over the demonizing of cannabis. And part of what I've found that helps with that is to really highlight more so the newer culture of cannabis as medicine, which is a different culture from cannabis as just culture, right? And the undercurrent of community. It's still important though. So you can do and, it doesn't have to be or.
Right. Well, I think you need both. And I think that it's great that you were able to really dispel some of these thoughts of, it's a sin for you to do that if you call it medicine and you smoking blunts or whatever, really dispel those type of myths. And I think that brings us to our main topic, really, where we are hearing a lot of myths right now as far as the small business bailout loan due to COVID-19. And I just feel like we had to have like a kind of update part 2, because information is slow rolling out at this point. And so we had to clarify some things, because we are encouraging people, if they have multiple businesses, especially if they're a serial entrepreneur and they do dabble in the cannabis industry, we're still, we're still encouraging people to apply.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you. I was on live earlier this week with Tangi. Shout out to Tangi Daniel of Jane Green. And we had a lot of questions that came up, and it made me really think to myself, we absolutely need to make sure that our She Blaze audience hears about sort of just some of the things, because they're reading the same articles that we're reading. So we're going to drop some articles that I'm referencing, as well as the actual SBA links that talk a little bit more about what the requirements are. But I did want to just give a little bit more clarity and recognize that we're talking about legal jargon, that it means what it means, and you can interpret it however you want to interpret it. And I am not a lawyer. I'm just a businesswoman who is constantly reading contracts and applications, and have done this,
terms and conditions.
Terms and conditions, yes. And so this is what that will be. It's dispelling the myth that all indirect or ancillary cannabis businesses are ineligible for the SBA loan. If people ask me that, if I was challenged on it, I would say that's absolutely not the case. We've got to clarify for folks, because I don't want people to be misled. This is the biggest economic stimulus that the country has ever done. And our people who are trying to transition into this industry, people who are within the hemp industry, all of that needs to know, that you all need to know what you're eligible for. But I will start with first that it is the lender's responsibility, and this is clear on the SBA's website, it's the lender's responsibility to deem you eligible or ineligible. It is not a crime, as long as you answer truthfully your application, for you to submit an application. If you do not distribute, grow, sell, or manufacture state licensed marijuana, you can answer every question honestly, including the one about whether you're doing anything federally illegal. It is then on the lender to determine if your business has the right eligibility. And I just want to clarify what they'll be looking at to make that determination. But let me just again say, you should apply and let them tell you no. right? If
Right.
you are not eligible. So that's the first thing. You're gonna not, you'll miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And so this is a shot that everybody needs to take, whether you're a sole proprietor, independent contractor, which never before were allowed to. And if you're a consulting firm, this is an opportunity for you.
So what are they specifically saying? Are they saying exactly as far as like, are people allowed to, what determines whether or not, people are in the cannabis business?
Well, the first and most obvious is that it has to be a state legal cannabis business to be automatically ineligible. And then if you run that business, to be honest, there is a question on the application that specifically asks if you are doing anything federally illegal, and you technically are if you are running a state legal cannabis business. And again, that means you make, sell, and distribute products that are marijuana cannabis businesses. So I say that again, it's marijuana. But they also last year released more details around these type of loans. So again, as a reminder from last week, I told you these economic disaster stimulus loans are not new. Now, the terms around the coronavirus ones are new because they're letting a lot more people get in because it's a disaster, it's a national state of emergency. So whereas in the past, sole proprietors and independent contractors were not eligible, now they are. And they're even changing what they're using as the parameters for what lenders can be as eligible. So these rules were drafted that were from last year. Pre-COVID, yes. And it basically outlines that in addition to state legal cannabis businesses, they're also saying that indirect businesses or ancillary firms that contribute to them directly, keyword directly, with products or services are also specifically excluded. So I would also let people know, again, that was pre-COVID, and we do have senators in Washington as we speak that are trying to, push for cannabis businesses to be included in the COVID specific language. And so that's still something that will come down the line. But what does it mean to, be an ancillary business, right?
Because I have a question. There are, especially in the cannabis, there's only 11 states really that are like for real cannabis business states in the truest sense, I would say. So if you're indirect, are you still considered indirect if you're a consultant or independent contractor that was working on a project and you got some funds, not maybe as much as you should have, but you got some funds and your license never got approved? Are you still an indirect marijuana business?
So the answer is no. So that's the first thing I would say as I've been giving tips and tricks. The very first thing is we start off the marijuana business in every state with a pool, a very large pool of businesses that get started and have investment raised specifically on path to try to have a license. But at some point, that pool comes down to a funnel, and the license holders are, some people call lottery winners. But if you worked on multiple other brands or businesses and they never got a license, then that does not count, in my opinion, from reading the language. It doesn't count as indirectly serving a state legal cannabis business. First of all, none of those businesses were selling marijuana cannabis products. They were simply making mostly culture products, right? Usually it's apparel or just things that are about a brand. Maybe it's just doing a couple of educational forums, primarily for politicians, but not under lobbying. So it's a very interesting space that a lot of us have operated in, where you have an intention, and so your intention and how you go about it is very different from what actually happens. If you're a person who just put together an application, putting in an application to the state is not a definition, in my opinion, of breaking a federal law. At the end of the day, you didn't get a license, you didn't get a chance to grow, sell, or distribute. And that money looks very different than if you are just a person who is helping or supporting. So that's one, right? The other thing is, it also depends on what you do for a direct. So say it was the case that your client or somebody you worked with was state legal cannabis businesses. They basically are saying that you would be ineligible, right, unless such use can be shown to be completely outside of the applicant's intended market. So for example, if you're a plumber and you come in to fix the sinks in the direct cannabis business or marijuana business, that you would still be eligible, right? Like you're a plumber, you can do it for any other things. It's not specific to the cannabis industry. If you're IT, that's the same thing that applies. So they've defined, and almost narrowly so in that way that helps us because everybody makes assumptions about the cannabis business, but they've defined a group,
and they be looking like acid. Okay?
They define a group that really does, say, hey, this feels cannabis specific versus something that can be completely outside of cannabis and you can still thrive and you can still do work. So it's one of those things where it's a very nuanced thing. The lender is going to have to determine whether or not you fall under the eligible ancillary business like the plumber or the ineligible ancillary business like the hydroponics guy that comes in and does all of the specific hydroponics for a grow. They've differentiated in that way. So definitely note which one you are. In the interest of time, I'm going to say the other two fairly quickly, but hemp businesses are not the same as marijuana businesses. Please, y'all, in the eyes of the law, yes, they're all cannabis. And hopefully in 10 years or less, we'll get the government to finally realize that and we start doing things a little bit differently. But in the meantime, if your clients or the work you've done as an ancillary business is with a hemp business, a hemp-based CBD business, the exact language was consistent with the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, a business that grows, produces, processes, distributes, or sells products made from hemp is eligible. So if you're in the hemp world, you're eligible for these SBA. A lot of people I've been hearing and I've been seeing, especially on the East Coast, trying to take themselves out of it because they're like, well, I sell CBD. Well, just because PayPal shuts you down.
That's legal.
Exactly. Just because PayPal don't know it's not legal. It's not okay for them to take you down. Doesn't mean the government doesn't know their own law, and they do. And last but not least, education, advocacy, and nonprofit work within the community are not the same as providing services or products to marijuana businesses. At the end of the day, you're providing your service, like we sell books to individuals. You're providing your service to individuals, to the community, maybe in partnership with municipality leaders, but not owned by municipality, because there are rules around having political connections as well. But if you are a nonprofit organization that's just doing advocacy, there's nothing, in fact, thanks to the Constitution and our rights, there's nothing that you're doing against the federal law that doesn't allow you to advocate on behalf of cannabis. Education, the same. So I would say there's still a very many of us that are eligible. You do not determine your own eligibility. You do not necessarily need to lie on any of the application. That's where the problem rises. We put an article up that was written by Marijuana Moment, and I felt it was a little inflammatory. No shade to Kyle, but it did not give enough of the hope that I feel like we do actually have in the situation, and it made a lot of people hit me up. They were very scared. They're like, oh my God, I submitted an application. Am I going to be in trouble? And no, you only are in trouble if you lied on your application.
Right. And if you lied on your application, or if the lender approves you and then you sign the paper, it doesn't matter to apply. It's like going to college. You apply to college, but that not necessarily the college you're going to.
That's true. Once you sign on a promissory note, then it becomes a different thing. But you don't want to. We're not encouraging anyone to provide fraudulent information. Tell the truth, but recognize that your truth does not necessarily make you ineligible, and that the lender must determine that. And be prepared to defend yourself and come with the receipts, right? So it is important for you to understand these nuances and the differences. That's why I wanted to break it down. I have to tell people all the time, despite the name of the company, the WeedHead, we do not sell weed. We never sold weed. We sell education. You know, the money gets made from selling books and other educational products, online services. Far as educational services are concerned, teaching people is a very different thing. And I definitely would have no issue defending that in any of my paperwork. And that's what I'm encouraging people to do, is defend the integrity behind your business. And also know that we have legislators who are trying to defend the integrity of the plant touching businesses for COVID. You pay your taxes, we should be able to be covered. So it's important for us to apply, show that we actually are interested in this. And I think that there's going to be some changes as they roll out second level stimuluses in terms of the cannabis industry inclusion.
They definitely are going to include, and we got to definitely just give a shout out to you and your research. Thank you for being a business strategist and getting us all the way together, because people were really, really nervous, and we still just encourage people to apply. And I guess this is also why those big corporations have like 9 different companies all working, doing the same thing within the big corporation. So we definitely got to get you to explain some more of that breakdown as we move past out of this COVID-19 and how to prevent these things in the past. And this episode's been really helpful, really good. I'm so thankful you clarified that, because people were really up in arms.
Absolutely, as they should be. But I'm glad I was able to help. As always, you can email sheblaze@theweedhead.com for any more questions, and we'll provide as many links as we can in the comments. And yeah, if you're listening, definitely shoot us an email if you have further follow-ups. Girl, look at the time. We have breezed through this very quickly. So I'm just going to leave folks with a little bit of final thoughts and takeaways. Follow the WeedHead. Check us out at theweedhead.com. We have a couple different things that are changing. Please remember that I have an April course that is available online. My online course, Intro to Cannabis Business, is only $50, which I dropped it down from $100. You get a free ebook, is multiple lectures and notes, and it's really, to me, sets you up with a great foundation to be able to figure out and navigate your way through the cannabis space. Join me next week, 4/18, for a Can-Inclusive You. And yeah, I'm going to be making some changes to my URL, my handle for Instagram and Twitter. So stay tuned for that as well.
How exciting. I definitely read a book on it. So watch She Blaze on Facebook Live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. and listen to us anytime on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And definitely make sure you subscribe to the WeedHead.com to stay up to date on what's blazing in the cannabis industry. So this has been a great show. Have a great week.
Bye.